How you guys doing? I was gonna make a little video here to try to explain Crusader a little bit, because I've been getting some questions. So first we're gonna go over my skill set, then I'll go over the gear with you, and then I'm gonna go do a demonstration tier 48, just so that you have an example. So we'll start here. Your generator, because you're gonna be using focus and restraint, so you have to have a generator to block it, would be Punish. Fury is, in my opinion, the best rune to use. You get the crit chance whenever you block, and you'll actually block quite a lot. You could probably use Celerity here, if you'd like that, but Punish is the best generator. It increases your block chance by 15%, and the weapon damage that Shield Bash does scales with block chance. So, use Punish. For Shield Bash, when playing solo, Crumble is the best rune. It has the most AoE, and AoE is your downfall. You have a lot of single target damage, but not a lot of AoE, so you gotta go with Crumble. For your defensive, you want to use Shield Glare here as a defensive. It's got the Wrath generation rune on it, so that you can Shield Bash as much as possible, and the Roland set reduces the cooldown of it, so you have this up very, very, very constantly. And it keeps you alive, because when you're not getting hit, you're not taking damage. Then you have, for your other passive here, you have not passive, skill here, Iron Skin with Steel Skin. You could probably get away with Flash if you wanted to walk through mobs, but Shield Charge, or Shield Bash, has a charge that you can use to move through packs of mobs without having to worry about it. Steel Skin has the increased duration, which gives you a very high uptime, and that 50% damage reduction is pretty major since we're not using Unity for this build. For your Law, Decaying Strength on Laws of Justice is the best at higher tiers. Once you hit a point where you start taking too much damage, this will keep you alive better. If you're at a lower tier though, if you're just like speed clearing some lower rifts, Unstoppable Force on Laws of Valor is faster and nicer, but remember, being dead, no damage. Keep yourself alive. Don't try to push Laws of Valor past the point that you can. For Acolyte's Champion, you're going to want to use the Prophet rune. The fact that it reses you from death and all the tankiness from the armor is much better than any other rune you have. And that's going to proc. I'm going to do a 48 for demonstration purposes, and I'm going to proc this. I almost guarantee it. Then for your passives, you want to use Towering Shield. The increased or decreased cooldown on Blind is so powerful. When you're not getting hit, you're not taking damage, you're not dying. And dying slows you down, obviously. Indestructible. This here is great because, like I said, you're going to die probably at least once, if not more. This will save you from a mistake. And sometimes you're in like a tight corridor and you get like arcane lasers, and you got to kill the elite to get past it. And the 5 seconds of essentially near invulnerability that this gives you, you can kill that elite easily. Often. Sometimes you can't, but that 5 seconds of damage is a ton. And then finally, for your next passive, it's just a lot of damage, all that extra strength you get for all those gems in your gear. And then Heavenly Strength, because you're going to be dual wielding well, not dual wielding, but you'll have a furnace and a shield, so you definitely need to use this, it's required. If for some reason you don't like Finery here, which is a lot of damage and a little bit of tankiness, Longer with the Law isn't bad, Wrathful isn't bad, Holy Cause isn't bad, so, well, maybe you're just getting geared and you don't have sockets in all your gear yet, which I find unlikely, but these are some decent options. I just wouldn't recommend them. And then for your gear, like I said, you're going to want a Furnace. I would recommend a Vit, Strength, and the 2 damage rolls and a socket on it. But obviously, they're hard to find perfect Furnaces with the rolls you want. So if you get one that's not quite got these, it's probably still better than most weapons. But you need the tankiness from that Vit. If you had one with cooldown on it, that's probably also usable. Because the increased uptime on Acolyte's Champion is great for you. But can't make any guarantees there. For your shield, you want the Pyro Morelia. It reduces the wrath of Shield Bash by 40 to 50%, which means you can spam it more and it's where most of your damage comes. It's just craftable right here. You should have it. If not, the plan isn't hard to find if you're new to the game. And then you want rolls of strength for more damage, crit chance for more damage, block chance because shield bash scales based on your block chance. Its weapon damage increases, and then that's multiplied by your set. So the block chance is more powerful. You also, mine has a really low base block chance, so you prefer a higher base block chance, but it is what it is. And then you want shield bash damage because that's where your damage is coming from. For wings, we're using focus and restraint. Crit chance, CC, strength, and a socket. You want a secondary res. Both of mine have physical res, as you see, if possible, but these wings are all about the damage. The set effect essentially multiplies your damage by 2.25 when both of them are active, so no reason not to use the wings. For your braces, you're going to want to use Drachion's Lesson. When you're hitting less than 3 targets, the Wrath refunding is extremely powerful. It lets you shield bash much more, not to mention the 200% damage you get if yours roll perfect. Otherwise, it's 150 to 200, and that's still a ton of damage that you would be lacking if you didn't use them. And then here you just want elemental, so fire damage, strength, vit, and 6 crit chance. Mine aren't perfect. And then you want a secondary there. You can actually get reduced range damage instead of a secondary res, but I like the secondary res. And then for an amulet, really any good amulet, there's nothing that's really required like, oh, you have to have an Eye of Elich. I have an Eye of Elich because it's the best damage amulet I have, and the reduced range attack is immensely powerful. It saves you quite a lot. But, you know, just something decent, like maybe an Ouroboros like that, or an immunity neck that rolled well. Neither of these are really that good. I don't know why I kept them, but those would all work just fine for you. And then you want 6-piece Rolands. On your gloves, you want a secondary resistance, cooldown, crit chance, crit damage, strength. Your shoulders, strength, vit, all res, cooldown. Your helm, you want a socket, crit chance, shield bash damage, and cooldown reduction for more uptime on accurates. Your chest, strength, vit. Mine has reduced elites, and then I have a secondary res. But I actually think I'd prefer something closer to this that has all res instead of reduced elites, and then reduced range attacks in the secondary. And it's actually possible to have reduced range attacks and reduced melee attacks by 7%. I would probably prefer a chest that looked like that, but RNG is sometimes a little bit tricky. For your pants, just strength, vit, all res. That's what matters there. And then my boots here are not quite what I would suggest. You want strength, vit, all res, shield bash damage, and then your secondary does not matter much. But if you don't get that, obviously something like this where you have strength, vit, armor, shield bash damage, physical res, or maybe movement speed there or something. But all res is best, because this set, really, you have a ton of damage from Roland's. You just need to stay alive. And then for your belt, I have a witching arrow on right now. At higher tiers, I would switch to a string of ears for tankiness, so you stay alive. I use a string of ears when I get above 50s. It's pretty much mandatory, otherwise you're gonna get murdered. And then you could also use an angel hair braid, so you can select the elemental damage you want on punish, and then you get all the runes effects. But it's not as good as a witching hour or a string of ears, so if you have one of those, I would suggest those over it. But it's viable if you haven't quite found one yet. And then for your rings, like I said, focus and restraint are the best, but in hardcore, or if you're just finding it too tanky, or you don't have good focus and restraint rings, and by good, I mean even just crappy old focus and restraints usually have more damage, but some decent unities, a unity and a Stone of Jordan, will serve you just fine. So you could try these out if you needed to. And then for your weapons, like I said, the furnace is great, but furnaces are hard to find, so until you get one, something... Heart Slaughter is not too bad. Obviously you're not using any physical here, but Conduit, Pylon scales with it. But really just a decently rolled 2H will do you fine, or like a Blood Brother increases block chance, so that's more damage on shield bash, so Blood Brother's good. Here's just a decently rolled 2H that you could use, but really your damage there is from the furnace, so you want to use that. Now, like I said, if you were going to be in a rift that's too challenging for you, switch to Laws of Valor, to Laws of Justice to live, and use a string of ears, but for me a 48's fine. I can tank it just fine 80% of the time, so I'm not going to do that for demonstration. You want to make sure you maintain your punish. That 15% block chance increases shield bash damage by a ton, and dropping focus and restraint buffs is just terrible for your damage. You lose so much. So here's our first elite. It has fire chains. Fire chains can be brutal, but really all you gotta remember is just keep stepping backwards and attack the one closest to you. It'll die, and then move to the next one. And you're gonna have to keep backpedaling because oftentimes they'll try to walk around you so that the fire chains are directly hitting you, which will destroy you very quickly. So just keep backpedaling. Here you see, I told you I would take probably at least a death. My passive has procced. All this range damage is a little hard to avoid, and the white mobs are actually probably scarier than the elites in this situation. Well, now they're all dead, but elites are fairly easy to deal with. Their affixes hurt, obviously, but the white mobs, there's just so many of them usually, and they can hit you and kill you very rapidly if you don't have them permanently blind. And when you're shield bashing things, it's often better to try to hit 3 or less so your bracers are active. So sometimes pulling just 2 or 3 mobs and killing them really quickly can be more efficient than just sitting there and shield bashing while your bracers aren't active. But it won't hurt you too much if you don't pay attention to that. Obviously that just helps a little bit with the proficiency. And like, oop, see, white mobs. I shouldn't have done that. When you have a pack of mobs like this, like I said, they'll kill you really quickly if you can't keep them all under shield glare's effect. So standing at the back of them and just working your way forward, even if it seems slow, will keep you alive. And this rift is actually pretty good. Decent density. Elites are great. You have enough damage, you can kill the elites. It's no problem. More elites, honestly, usually makes my rifts faster. All the white mobs take a long time to go through, and they don't give that much progression. Whereas I can kill the elites almost as quickly as I can chunk a pack of white mobs, and I get more progression from it. So elite heavy rifts are often great for you. You don't like health link very much though. Health link often slows your damage down because it's really hard to get shield bash to hit all 3 elites usually. In this situation these elites are so big that it's not too bad. And I might actually die here. Waller makes your charge a little buggy when you shield bash to some mobs because you move around the wall. Power pylon. I would recommend, in a situation like that, saving the power pylon and saving that elite and trying to skip it. And then to come back and use the power pylon for the boss if you're trying to push a rift. The power pylon on that boss will usually drop it down to 20%, which I'll actually show you in a minute. But the weapon on my follower freezes mobs when he attacks them and they're under 20% HP. So if you can drop your Rift Guardian 20%, your Rift Guardian becomes a statue. And you don't have to worry about taking damage. Power pylon usually will accelerate that to quick enough that you can do it in the time you get from accurates reviving you, and then your indestructible passive reviving you. Usually. This elite is destroying me. Come on, I'm gonna need that. I'm gonna... It's actually a really good rift. I need to get a rift that looks like this on my 53, 54 attempts I'm going to do later. I actually prefer it without the constructs though. These smoldering constructs are very challenging. Unless they're the Stygian crawlers, they don't do much for progression. Oh, I forgot to show you gems. I will do that as soon as the rift ends. Your gems you're going to want to use are the Molten Wildebeest Gizzard, Historic Alteration, and Bane of the Trap. And the reasoning behind this is staying alive is your problem, not doing damage. As you see, I melt the rift when I'm alive. The problem is living because you take a ton of damage, and the only way to really tank it is by keeping things... Oh, they're fast. Fast is terrible. Keeping things under the effect of shield glare. Bane of the Trap you use for the damage, and then Gizzard synergizes very well with the Stoic. When you get low on HP, you can tank almost anything due to your massive HP regen. See, this is why Fast doesn't just increase their movement speed, it lets them cast faster. It's like that Frozen Pulse is coming out so often that I have to keep moving around it, and it really makes the elite challenging. Because if you have to take a step back or like focus white mobs like I did there for a while to get some cooldowns to effectively tank the elite, it's better than dying. Because the more deaths you have, the longer your res timer is. And chances are you might die to your Rift Guardian. And if you die to your Rift Guardian, you're just sitting there waiting. And that's why you lose your Rift. It's easily avoidable when you just move around some mobs like that. Shielding. Wonderful. Where's my accurate saving me? Thanks to that channeling, it saved me twice there. And that invulnerability lets you just sit there and not worry about anything, so you can finish off the elite. What do we got? Crusader King. Now, on Crusader you have a lot of single target damage with this spec, not a lot of AoEs. So your Rift Guardian does not matter as much as some specs. Stone Slinger is the best, but he's pretty much the best for everything, because his HP is so low. The Rift Guardians that spawn mobs usually are worse if you can't control the mobs well. The extra mobs help with shield glare, so you get more wrath, but often they can reduce your damage when you hit them alongside the boss. They can make it harder to tank, like Saxtrus and Hamelin, where you have no way to keep everything under the effect of shield glare. They will start murdering you, and you'll find that you die too easily against them. A boss like this though is great. You get your increased damage from your bracers, and then there's that weapon. And you get the extra wrath from the minions he spawns. But your Rift Guardian doesn't matter so much. Obviously, when you get to the tier that is questionable if you can beat it or not, you're probably going to need Stone Slinger, and that's where you're going to be fishing for Rift Guardian. But that seems to be the case with almost any class you play in Diablo, that Stone Slinger is just so much better than all the other Rift Guardians. And there's that weapon I was talking about. Mine's really bad, but you really just need the secondary roll there. 20%, that's the max roll. It'll keep him frozen, save you. And then I was going to show you those gems. Like I said, Gizzard, Bane of the Trap, Historic Alteration. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. I can leave them in the comments below. I can answer them. Or if you actually know me in game, feel free to send me a message. Or if you want to go find me, easiest way to do it would probably go to the leaderboards. I'm right here. Feel free to send me a message or add me as a friend. I will answer your questions if I can, and if I don't know the answer, I'll do my best to find out, because I bet you there's things that I don't know. In fact, some of you might know more than I do, but I just wanted to give a little video trying to explain this, because I didn't see much out there about the Crusader class. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.